You already know that model railroading is the world's greatest hobby, but why is it the world's greatest hobby? Why do we love our trains so much, and why do we build our layouts with such passion? That's what we're going to talk about today. Hi, I'm Roy Smith. Welcome to my layout. I've been thinking, model railroading can be expensive and it can be frustrating, so I ask myself, why do I do it and why am I so passionate about doing it? I think there are at least 3 explanations for our fascination with model railroading. And these 3 explanations are childhood memories, creativity, and social interaction. Let's talk about all 3. First, childhood memories. Many of us received train sets when we were kids, usually at Christmas time. For many of us, that was the beginning of a lifelong passion. I was 10 years old when I got my first train set for Christmas. It was a Lionel Santa Fe Super Chief with a couple of freight cars and a caboose. At first I ran it on the floor, but Dad soon got a 4x8 sheet of Homosote and some lumber and built a platform for my train. That was my first layout. I have many other childhood memories of experiences with model trains. For example, I remember visiting my uncle and aunt who lived in downtown Trenton, New Jersey one Christmas. It was snowing during our visit there in downtown, but we went walking to a nearby department store that had what seemed to me to be an enormous layout of Lionel trains. And then there was a kid I knew. He was a little older than me and his parents were rich, so he could have an enormous layout in his basement with 3 or 4 trains running on it at the same time. Lionel catalogs fascinated me when I was a kid. I wish I still had them. And to this day, I remember the distinctive smell produced by Lionel locomotives. I wonder why locomotives don't smell that way today. In 1961, my great-grandmother bought me a 1-year subscription to Model Railroader magazine. That's when I first saw John Allen's mind-boggling Gory and Defeated Railroad. What a lifelong impression that made on me. I no longer have those old magazines, but I do have this priceless book about the Gory and Defeated, written by Lynn Westcott and published in 1981. Just take a look at this photo in the book. Later on, there were other brief moments of interest in model railroading throughout my adult life, but not many. For example, way back in 1969, when I was a student at Penn State, I bought my first ever N-scale locomotive. Back then, N-scale was in its infancy and not very good. But that purchase was my introduction to N-scale. I did try to build an N-scale layout in the mid-1980s. I was influenced at that time by Alan McClellan's V&O Railroad and Gordon Odegaard's Clinchfield Railroad. Both of these layouts appeared on the pages of Model Railroader magazine. But otherwise, I was too busy with my career to pursue the hobby for a very long time. Finally, 30 years later and well into retirement, I came back to the hobby just a little over 3 years ago in 2014. I don't know exactly what brought me back, but I do know that now at long last, I could begin to build a layout of my dreams, and I could do it with a passion for model trains that I hadn't experienced since childhood. Okay, explanation number 2 for our interest in model railroading: creativity. As a model railroader, you get to express your creativity and develop new skills at the same time. No 2 layouts are exactly alike. What you create is entirely up to you. Your layout is a unique, one-of-a-kind creation. What you create may be just a representation of the real thing, and everything on your layout may be selectively compressed. But your trains come to life when you put them on your layout and begin to operate them. And as you express your creativity in model railroading, you have a chance to develop a variety of new skills at the same time. These new skills might include carpentry, electronics, soldering, painting, computer skills, photography, and much more. The learning curve can be steep in model railroading. For example, DCC and JMRI may be entirely new to you. Everything certainly was new to me when I came back to the hobby after a 30-year hiatus. There is always something more to learn, and the challenges you encounter along the way can be frustrating. Perhaps you've carefully followed the instructions, but that darn locomotive still won't run, and you can't figure out why. But then there comes a tremendous sense of satisfaction when you master a new skill or overcome a challenge. I remember, for example, trying to figure out how to replace a broken drive shaft in my first Cato SD70 ACE at a time when I had absolutely no prior experience in doing such things. And I remember well how it ran after I managed to replace the drive shaft. Wow, what a sense of accomplishment. And as we go along, we learn that there isn't necessarily a right or wrong way to do things in model railroading. In fact, there are often multiple ways to do things. Take track, for example. Do you want to go with cork roadbed and flex track? Or do you want to go with sectional track? How about scenery? Do you want to build those mountains with plaster cloth stretched over a cardboard lattice? Or do you want to build them with extruded styrofoam? You have many choices in model railroading, none of them necessarily right or wrong. You get to do what works best for you. You get to follow your own preferences. It's your layout. And explanation number 3, social interaction. As you may know, I live in Panama. Down here, the hobby doesn't exist outside of my train room. So when I travel to the States, I hang out at train clubs, shows, and stores, or with model railroad friends who love the hobby as much as I do, and who love to talk about it as much as I do. I can tell you this, some of my best friends are model railroaders. I know not everybody is fascinated by model trains, and not everybody understands why we are so fascinated by them. But I also know that thousands and thousands of you model railroaders are out there. I know this because I get to meet many of you at train club open houses and model train shows. And many of you can be found right here on YouTube. Hanging out with other model railroaders, interacting with them, and sharing the hobby with them is, I think, one of the best explanations for why this is the world's greatest hobby. For us model railroaders, the secret to happiness and fun seems to be found in hanging out with like-minded friends who share our interest in the hobby. It amazes me that so many model railroaders enjoy sharing their knowledge and experience with the rest of us. Quite often we work on our layouts alone. I certainly do. But I think the hobby of model railroading is a social one, meant to be shared with others. Sharing the hobby is just plain fun. So there you have it. Childhood memories, creativity, and social interaction all contribute to our fascination with model trains. These 3 things, and perhaps many others, explain why model railroading is the world's greatest hobby. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Go on down to the comments section and tell the rest of us why you think model railroading is the world's greatest hobby. And if this is your first time here, be sure to subscribe to this channel because I've got a whole ton of ideas for upcoming videos that you won't want to miss. For example, I'm putting together a series of videos showing you how operations are conducted on selected areas of my layout. I'm glad we had this little chat today about the world's greatest hobby. Until next time, thanks for watching and happy railroading.